Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Let's give ourselves a hands for being here really quickly. I know that we all have very important work and very important schedules that involve impacting lives in this industry. So on behalf of GuilfordWorks, our stakeholders, our board, and our partners in planning this event, I want to welcome you to the third annual GuilfordWorks Healthcare Workforce Summit. Just want to also thank Guilford College for accommodating us and being a wonderful partner. And I'd like to just share the podium with Dr. Ann and Dr. Craig and just let them greet you briefly, okay?
Thank you. Hello, my name is Ann Glenn, and I'm Professor of Chemistry and Coordinator of the Health Sciences major here at Guilford College.
And I'm Craig Albacher. I'm the coordinator of the Sports Studies Department. We have exercise science and sports medicine and sport management.
And I'm so happy to welcome y'all to Guilford College today, so thank you so much for being here. Our students are very, very interested in careers in the health professions. Over my time at Guilford, I've literally worked with hundreds of students who have gone into healthcare careers. And actually, some of the largest majors here on campus are the health sciences major, which is a pre-professional major, also exercise science, the sports medicine aspect, as well as we have majors in public health. And recently we've also included, because not only at Guilford College, not only do students get an excellent background, the science basics that they need to go into careers in healthcare, they also have that liberal arts breadth that gives them the critical thinking skills, that gives them the ability to write. One of the things, I have alumni that come back and talk to students, and one of the things that they always say when I ask them, what's something that you're able to do that gives you a leg up on your classmates in grad school right now? And they'll say, we can write, because we had to write all the time while we were at Guilford College. And Guilford has also recently, just this past year, approved a health humanities major, and that health humanities is discussing how the arts, the social sciences, and the humanities can all come together to help to help students and help healthcare providers or people involved in healthcare have a more holistic view of how it works. And there are several ways that you can connect with folks at Guilford. We would love, one of the things that's very important part of the Guilford College curriculum is hands-on learning, experiential learning, team-based learning. And so all of our students are required to have some kind of experience for the health science major or for the exercise science major. So if you would be interested in having our students come be interns for you, or you would be interested in hiring our students part-time while they are students, because most of our students do work in addition to taking classes, or if you'd like to recruit our students after they graduate, we would love to send them to work for y'all. And there are several folks. You can certainly reach out to me directly. As I said, my name is Ann Glenn, and you can find me on the website, but my email address is just aglenn@guilford.edu.
Yeah, and mine, you can go to the Sports Studies Department. You'll see my name, my picture. Eilbacher is a little tough to spell, so you can find it on the website. But if there's any opportunity or chance that you would like to come in to speak to a class, feel free to reach out to myself or Ann. We'd love to have you come in, come in and visit a class, spend 15, 20 minutes, talk to our students. That would be great. So, but again, thank you for being here. And
absolutely, thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So we have an amazing agenda prepared for you all, and we're just very, very excited that you are here. I have a couple of things that I wanted to share, and then we can move through our program. So GuilfordWorks is one of 20 workforce development boards located in North Carolina. We collaborate with a multitude of businesses, educational and training institutions, community agencies, as well as local, regional, and state government representatives to help individuals and employers gain access to free or low-cost programs and services that can connect talent to jobs. At the end of the day, those of you who are in education, you are preparing and grooming professionals to make an impact in the healthcare industry, and we want to be that conduit or that bridge to help that work go on. We recognize the importance of your impact as well as the contributions of our labor force. Our role is to engage with you to gain understanding of workforce development challenges and opportunities in the healthcare industry from your perspective, which is why engagement and convening is so important. The Healthcare Summit is a strategic discussion of healthcare leaders from industry, education, training institutions curated to stimulate a broader and wider healthcare industry from a wider healthcare industry's point of view. So today we are hoping that collectively our efforts will work toward attracting and retaining new talent, developing and growing a thriving workforce, looking at ways to mitigate the cost of associating with onboarding and training industry newcomers, meeting and growing the increasing demands of healthcare workers in the next decade. So again, thank you for being here. So with regards to our program, our first speaker is Neil Harrington, and we're so excited to have him. Neil is a strategic data analyst with the North Carolina Department of Commerce. Neil is a strategic, he uses data to understand what's going on in North Carolina's economy, how economic trends impact people, and how these insights can inform policy. Neil currently resides in Durham, but is a native of Pensacola, Florida. He received his bachelor's degree from the University of Mississippi, came to North Carolina via Duke University's Sanford School of Public Policy, where he received his master's in public policy. Before Duke, he lived in Jackson, Mississippi, working for a small public relations and research consulting firm. Let's welcome Neil Harrington to the platform. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Joyce. Thanks to you all for having me here today. As Joyce said, my name is Neil Harrington. I am a strategic data analyst at the Labor and Economic Analysis Division of the North Carolina Department of Commerce. I'm excited to be here today to talk about the future of the Triad's healthcare labor pipeline and hopefully set the stage for some good panel discussions later in the morning. So before we get started, just a few key points I'm going to work through to kind of frame everything and tie everything together. First, right, no surprise to you all in this room, healthcare is a critical industry in the Triad, as it is in most of the state, but especially so here. And the second Piedmont Triad labor markets are really tight right now, especially in healthcare, which introduces difficulties for employers who are trying to fill open positions and hire folks. Just a quick aside, I'll say Piedmont Triad or Piedmont Triad Prosperity Zone throughout this presentation several times, and it's referring to kind of an economic grouping, a regional grouping the Department of Commerce comes up with, and it's an 11-county area here in the Triad, including Winston-Salem and Greensboro. So just to kind of define that up front. Number three, right, the Triad's aging healthcare workforce poses kind of potential threats to the industry and ability to maintain a good, healthy labor pool. And fourth, the tight labor market not only complicates hiring for healthcare employers, but it's really also complicating training through traditional pathways and our ability to get folks into health science programs at both community colleges and universities at the university level. And five, right, moving forward, encouraging workers to pursue educational and training goals is really kind of essential. So that's the key points to work through. The data I'll kind of talk about are kind of grouped into four sections. First, I'll give kind of an overview of employment in healthcare and wages in the healthcare industry, talk about job flows, where healthcare gets workers from, where healthcare workers are leaving the industry and going to, and then talk about the healthcare workforce itself, kind of demographics of the healthcare workforce, and compare that to other areas of the state. So first up, employment in healthcare, right? So as I mentioned, right, healthcare is really a critical industry in the Triad. In the fourth quarter of 2022, the healthcare and social assistance sector here in the Piedmont Triad Prosperity Zone employed about 110,000 people. That was about a fifth of total employment in the entire region. Right, as you can see, the next largest was manufacturing, followed by retail, trade, and accommodation and food services. But right, healthcare and social assistance is really kind of a broad grouping. It contains a lot of different types of businesses and establishments. So what really drives healthcare here in the Triad? Here it's really hospitals, right? Hospitals employed about 34,000 people in the fourth quarter of 2022. Makes sense, right, given there's two big hospital systems, both in Greensboro and Winston-Salem, and these kind of other industry groups employ a smaller share. Office of Physicians are the second highest, and they employ only about half the number of people that hospitals employ. So the last two slides really give a good snapshot of what employment in healthcare looks like, really, but how has it kind of performed over time? Right, might come as no surprise to you all to learn that healthcare employment in the Triad has kind of been consistently growing, and in a lot of ways has matched what we've seen in the state, especially in Greensboro. Right, this slide on the left here, the graph on the left here, the orange line, that's Greensboro's change in healthcare employment since around 2018. You can see it's pretty similar to the gray line over there on the right side, which is North Carolina. Winston-Salem has lagged a little bit more. It's been kind of jumpy since the pandemic. It kind of recovered the jobs lost, or got close to recovering the jobs lost in late 2022, but it's dipped a little bit in 2023. But generally, right, North Carolina, or the Triad's healthcare employment has kind of experienced similar trends as the state, which allows North Carolina to be a good kind of proxy for this area when we're looking at sub-industry data that's more recent with this different data source that we're using. So looking at that data, right, we can see North Carolina's hospitals really are way above what they were at pre-pandemic. So the pre-pandemic line is that dotted line at the near the middle of the graph there. There's a slight dip right before the pandemic. That line should actually be kind of closer to right here, really, and you can see it dipped a little bit during the pandemic. Not much, right? Hospitals didn't really see a lot of loss in demand during the pandemic because of all the health concerns and public health issues going on. Ambulatory healthcare services saw a bigger dip, but have also bounced back and recovered the employment they lost during the pandemic. Nursing and residential care facilities, on the other hand, have not recovered as much. Right, which makes sense when we think about the experiences of nursing homes and similar kind of residential care facilities during the pandemic. Right, they were hit pretty hard by COVID as outbreaks and severe illnesses affected their residents and workers, and folks probably pulled their family members out of nursing homes a little bit. They might not have returned their family members back to these kind of residential care facilities, which has probably reduced demand for labor a little bit at these establishments. Also, kind of helping to explain this lack of employment recovery is the fact that wages for workers in nursing residential care facilities tend to be a little bit lower. And with the tight labor market that we have right now, right, there's plenty of other really good paying opportunities for people who are maybe making $10 to $15 an hour at a nursing home. They could probably go down the street to Chick-fil-A or Target and make closer to $20 an hour. So that's also kind of helping to explain some of this lack of recovery in nursing homes. I'll talk a little bit about the tight labor market in a little more detail in a bit. But looking ahead, right, healthcare is expected to continue growing here in the Triad and in North Carolina. So Lead's employment projections team forecasts that the healthcare sector in North Carolina will expand by about 1.3% every year through 2030, which is a little bit higher than what we expect employment across all industries to grow at, which is about 1%. You can see, right, Winston-Salem's healthcare industry and Greensboro's healthcare industry are also expected to grow by about 1.5% per year through 2030. All right, so that's employment. What about wages? Right, average weekly wages in the Piedmont Triad Prosperity's healthcare and social assistance sector are slightly above the average across all industries. So you can't really make out the number too much there, but in the fourth quarter of 2022, the healthcare and social assistance sector paid average wages of around $1,200 in the Triad. The average across all industries was about $1,000, $1,090, so about $100 more per week in the healthcare sector, which is good, right? But the healthcare sector does rank about sixth compared to all industries in the Triad. But wage growth in the healthcare sector has been pretty strong, right? Since 2017, the Triad region's healthcare sector average weekly wages have grown by about, the number's not there, but it's about 28% since 2017, while the North Carolina's healthcare sector wages have grown by about 27%. And you can see, right, the dotted line there is how much inflation or CPI price increases have kind of eaten into that, and it hasn't eaten into it completely. Wage growth in both the Triad and North Carolina's healthcare sector have really outpaced inflation, and even really importantly outpaced the higher inflationary bout that we've seen over the past couple of years. So, of course, wages in healthcare can vary dramatically across different industry groups, right? So healthcare is, like I said, it's a broad grouping of a sector. Offices of physicians paid the highest average weekly wages in the fourth quarter of 2022, about $2,400 per week. Care type facilities, right? Child care services, continuing care facilities, vocational rehab, things like that. They pay a little lower. They pay wages in the lower end of the spectrum across industry groups in healthcare, and about $600 range per week. And despite employing the most people in the triad, the hospitals paid about the third best wages, with just under $1,500 per week. So why might this be, right? What causes this kind of wage variation across industry groups? It's really about the kind of occupations that are that these different establishments are employing. Hospitals, right, employ a really occupationally diverse workforce, from cafeteria workers to cardiothoracic surgeons. So it brings their average wage down a little bit because there's a lot fewer cardiothoracic surgeons than there are cafeteria workers at hospitals. Offices of physicians, on the other hand, in offices of dentists, they have much smaller staff and higher concentrations of these high-paying occupations. That brings their average up a little bit. And then residential care communities employ a lot more kind of these low-paying occupations that I was mentioning earlier. And that really helps explain some of the lack of recovery in the employment data that I was mentioning, right? How is that? Like I mentioned, it's really because of tight labor markets. So when a labor market's tight, it's difficult for employers to hire workers, but it gives a lot more power to workers in wage negotiations. And the Triad's labor market is really tight, as is the state. And generally, this Piedmont Triad Prosperity Zone area has had a tighter labor market than the state as a whole throughout the years. In the most recent data, February 2023, there was about 0.7 job seekers per job opening. So job seekers per job opening is a standard measure of labor market tightness that we use. The lower it is, the tighter the labor market, the better it is for workers. The state at the same time was about 0.9. So that means there's less than one job seeker out there for every job opening that employers have. And right, the labor market has kind of been at this really tight level for the past 2 years. And both of these are kind of historical low points. So labor markets don't not only differ regionally, they also vary by industry, right? So if we're looking at just the health sciences labor market, it's generally much tighter than the overall labor market, both in the Triad, at the state level, and in comparable large metro areas like the Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill area and the Charlotte area. So between 2019 and 2021, there's an average of around one job seeker per job opening in all of these areas. And right in the Triad, in comparable metros, and in North Carolina. In this health sciences, labor market tightness really holds up across all educational attainment levels. Health sciences is tightest for workers with a bachelor's degree education. There are about 2 jobs available per every person out there with a bachelor's degree that's looking for a job in health sciences on average between 2019 and 2021. And post-secondary education, like an associate's degree or a credential or some sort of training certificate from a community college, people with that sort of education level also have seen a pretty strong demand for their labor out there in health sciences. People with a high school diploma or less and above a bachelor's degree, labor markets are a little slacker, but they're still pretty tight given historical levels. So labor markets can also vary somewhat across within these kind of career clusters, right? So there's the health sciences career cluster. Within this health sciences career cluster, we have different career pathways and support services, therapeutic services, diagnostic services, health informatics, and biotech and research. Biotech, research and development, and health informatics, that's kind of where there's been the most demand, or the tightest labor markets in health sciences, right, with generally more than 2 jobs available per person looking for a job out there on average between 2019 and 2021. But still, right, support services, therapeutic services, diagnostic services, those are all still remarkably tight. There's still at least 1 job available per every person out there between 2019 and 2021 that was looking for a job in these occupations. So tight labor market, what does it mean, right? I've mentioned it a few times and kind of touched on what it means, but basically right, it's more difficult for employers to hire workers because there's a lot of job openings out there, maybe not as many workers readily available to fill them. This makes it hard for employers to fill positions. It usually gives workers more opportunities to earn higher wages, like I mentioned, and it also enables workers to move between jobs a little easier, whether that's moving to a better paying role within the same industry, same occupation, or moving to a different occupation entirely. It makes it a little easier for folks to do that. So speaking of folks moving between jobs and switching jobs, what industries does healthcare lose workers to? What do they gain from? Let's look at some of the job flows here. So in most cases, healthcare workers who change jobs get a new job within the industry. In the first quarter of 2022, about 58% of people who left a job in healthcare went to another job in healthcare. Well, the data doesn't really tell us, it tells us that the healthcare industry is really good at retaining workers. It doesn't really tell us whether those job changes are people moving up, like a vertical career move from like an LPN to an RN, or whether they're kind of moving horizontally from an LPN to another LPN job, maybe for a better wage or a different establishment. But there's no other industry in the triad who had workers changing jobs in the first quarter of 2022 that posted a higher percentage of workers moving to a new job within the same industry. So healthcare is remarkably good at keeping people within the industry. But when they do leave the industry, right, they're primarily going to administrative and support service type establishments. So these are things like temp agencies, and then a smaller share go to things like retail, trade, accommodation of food services, and education. So this kind of ability to retain job changers also holds up at every education level, right? Of course, workers with higher education are more likely to stay within the industry. About 60% of healthcare job changers who had some college education or bachelor's degree or higher moved to a different job within the industry, and just a smaller percentage with these kind of lower education levels. And this really makes sense when we think about it, right? Because if you're investing in higher education and healthcare, it's generally reflecting an intent to build a career there. So if you're putting the money up to do that, especially today, college is pretty expensive across the board. I just went to Duke and finished last year, and it was quite expensive for me. So I realized the need to stick to your commitment there. Right, so this kind of makes sense when we think about the cost it's going to cost folks to invest in their education. So what about where healthcare is gaining workers from? You could probably have guessed from the past couple of minutes that the industry that healthcare gains workers from the most is healthcare. About 53%, I think the number's missing there, but the 53% of workers who are coming to healthcare in the first quarter of 2022 came from another job in healthcare, followed by administrative and support services, right? About 10% of people that got a healthcare job in the first quarter of 2022 came from administrative and support services, and smaller shares for retail, trade, accommodation, and food services, and education. So, who are healthcare workers in the triad area? What does the healthcare workforce look like? So first, in terms of gender diversity, healthcare is overwhelmingly female in the triad. That's pretty much the case in other comparable large metro areas like the Triangle in Charlotte and in North Carolina. Generally, about 80% of the healthcare workforce is female. In some ways, the kind of gender distribution of the healthcare workforce makes other industries less of a threat for kind of poaching workers. Right, gender norms and gender roles are still a big aspect of our society, play out in people's employment decisions, both at the employer level and the employee level. And like I mentioned earlier, the second largest industry by total employment in the triad is manufacturing, which is an industry that is historically and currently is dominated by men in the workplace. So if much of the opportunity in the triad is outside of healthcare is concentrated in manufacturing and other industries, there's similarly kind of male-dominated work environments. Recruiting healthcare workers tend to be female, may be a little easier than other industries. So in terms of racial diversity, the triad's healthcare workers are about as racially diverse as North Carolina's, right? The largest racial and ethnic group among healthcare workers in the triad is white people who are white and not Hispanic. About 60% of workers in healthcare in the triad are white and non-Hispanic. That kind of lines up with what we see in North Carolina. But as you can see, right, the Triangle and the Charlotte area, these two gray bars, they have some smaller percentages of the white workforce and larger percentages of their workforce that are Black or Hispanic and Latino. All right, educational attainment is also kind of lines up with North Carolina in the triad, right, and with other comparable metros as well, for the most part, and all four of the triad, the Triangle, Charlotte, and North Carolina. The largest educational attainment group among the healthcare workforce is folks with some college education or an associate's degree or a certificate or some sort of credential from a community college. About 30% of the triad's workforce, a little more than 30%, has some college education or an associate's degree. But if you look closely at these lines here, right, you can see that the triad does have a little bit of a larger share of its workforce with some college education or an associate's degree than the Triangle and Charlotte, especially the Triangle, and a little bit smaller of share with a bachelor's degree or higher. So in terms of age, right, the triad's healthcare workforce is slightly older than comparable metros and a little bit slightly older than North Carolina's as well. About 26% of healthcare workers in the triad are above the age of 55. In the Triangle, that's around 24%, and Charlotte's around 23%. And accordingly, right, there's a lower share of prime working age workers in triad healthcare. So prime working age is workers ages 25 to 54. In the triad, it's about 66% of the healthcare workforce versus about 69-70% in the Triangle and in Charlotte. Right, and this larger share of the workforce approaching retirement age in the triad represents somewhat of a threat to the workforce and kind of stresses the need to attract, train, and retain more workers in healthcare so that the labor pipeline here remains strong. So complicating that kind of need to train and retain workers a bit is declining enrollment at health sciences CTE programs at triad area community colleges. So the blue line here is triad area community college enrollment, the percentage change from 2013 in health sciences CTE programs. That's including Forsyth, Guilford, Davidson, Davie, and Rockingham community colleges. It's down about 36% from the enrollment level health sciences CTE enrollment was at in 2013 versus the North Carolina Community College System's health science CTE program has also decreased, but it's about 13 to 14% below what it was at in 2013. But health sciences CTE programs aren't the only programs experiencing enrollment declines. Enrollment across kind of all programs at these triad community colleges has been decreasing over the past 10 years or so. Health sciences has decreased a little more than all program enrollment. The triad area community colleges aren't unique in this regard either. Enrollment among all programs across the North Carolina community college system has been down a little bit. And that's not terribly abnormal given the tight labor market that we're in, and the people these programs serve likely have plenty of other good paying job opportunities that they can turn to and would probably rather make $5 to $6, $7, $8 more an hour rather than going to pay money to go to college right now. And that relationship kind of plays out during every economic cycle for the most part. Folks tend to turn away from education when the labor market is strong, and they'll turn back to it when there's a downturn and employers aren't hiring as much. But it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge that needs to be monitored and addressed, especially as the economy starts to cool off and good employment opportunities might start to dry up relative to what they are right now. But some good news, right? Enrollment in health professions and related programs among bachelor's degree students at UNCG, Winston-Salem State University, North Carolina A&T University, the kind of public universities in this region. That enrollment among these health professions programs ticked up a little bit between fall 2021 and fall 2022 by about 15%. And if we look at just RN bachelor's enrollment, it ticked up by about 17%. And that's welcome news after kind of a period of stagnation and somewhat decline since 2013. What this doesn't show, however, right, is the share of these students that stay in the area after graduating, which would reflect the kind of degree to which these programs are connected to industry in the area and able to get folks from education into employment. So how can workforce leaders, employers, and others get people into healthcare? This is where my maybe expertise in data isn't your all's lived experience doing this work is probably better than my experience with data, but a few points from kind of an economic perspective and from how I can think of, and just kind of recapping everything. First, right, the Triad's healthcare workforce is slightly older than North Carolina's and other metros, so ensuring there are enough workers in the next generation of the healthcare workforce is really essential. This means getting folks into those training programs, which have seen declines in recent years, especially community colleges, as we saw from the last few slides. And this is especially important because some of the most in-demand occupations in the healthcare industry in the Triad are those requiring some sort of degree from a community college or a bachelor's degree program. And of course, I'm sure you're all aware, it might be difficult to get people into training programs right now, as workers have all these plenty of good paying job opportunities with the tight labor market. But right, one option to combat this might be just meeting workers where they are, right? Encouraging employers to hire folks who may be a little below traditional requirements. I know that in healthcare, especially, there's a lot more regulations around the credentials and the experience that folks have to get into certain occupations. So it's a little more challenging for healthcare, but really any sort of kind of work-based learning program that allows workers to take advantage of both employment and training employment opportunities right now while they're really good, and also pursuing training and education is a good approach. That's all I got. Thank you very much. Hopefully this was helpful.
Thank you, Neil. Were there any questions for Neil at this time? Neil, did you want to answer any questions? If you have any questions at this time, we certainly would be happy to take a few questions. And I can bring the mic to you, so you don't have to yell. If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. All right. I don't think you have any questions, Neil.
Guess I covered everything.
Guess he covered everything. Awesome. So we are now going to prepare for our first panel. And our panel, I'm very excited about this panel. The panel is called Career Pathways to the Healthcare Industry in the Piedmont Triad Area. I think this is going to be a great discussion because we're going to have an opportunity to really hear from our education and training space. And, I really think this is a great opportunity to, really pull the curtains back and to just understand, what work is being done on an educational level, and when you think about our colleges and our universities, you think about our communities. So this is certainly going to be a really great conversation. And Warren Crow is going to be our moderator. And so just very, very excited about that. So I'd like to introduce Warren, and then I'd like to call up our panelists for our panel discussion. So Warren Crow, who is our moderator for this particular panel, is the program director of health sciences at Guilford Technical Community College. Being a registered nurse for 38 years, Warren has served in many healthcare leadership roles. A graduate of UNC Chapel Hill with degrees in chemistry and nursing, Warren worked as the nursing director for the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit and clinical educator for the emergency department at North Carolina Memorial Hospital, UNC Hospitals. He is a Greensboro native, and upon returning to the area, worked as the nursing director for the post-anesthesia care unit, nursing director for the emergency department, and director of Care Link, the mobile critical care transport program at Moses Cone Hospital. Warren began his career at GTCC in 2012 as a nursing assistant adjunct instructor. Now he serves as the program director for health careers in the health sciences division, graduating 865 students this past year. The father of 2 adult children, Warren spends his time away from campus remodeling his 1939 home, cooking and caring for his rescue Siamese cat, Bally. Hope I pronounced your cat's name correctly.
She doesn't care.
I'm glad that she's not sensitive, Warren. I feel very bad. And I'd like to introduce the names of our panel. We have Dr. Summer J. McGee.
If you guys will come on up and have a seat, that'd be great.
We have Dante Wade, Pam McMillan, Dr. Linda Latham. Dr. Summer Johnson McGee is the 22nd president of Salem Academy and College. Dante Wade is the assistant vice president of corporate partnerships at Greensboro College. Pam McMillan is the development manager and university partnerships director at ECPI University. And Dr. Linda Latham is the clinical associate professor and coordinator of RN BSN program track of Harrison College of Health and Human Sciences at North Carolina A&T State University. Please give our panelists a hand. All right, so now I'm going to turn this over to our illustrious moderator and cat owner, Warren Rowe.
Well, we all have to own something, don't we?
Turn this mic off.
Either way. Let's see, do you guys have a mic?
So,
You want to use hers?
Yes.
Cool.
Pass around.
Cool.
if the green light is on, it's on.
Who's first? You're first. That's what I thought. So, what a great opportunity I have to work with brilliant people. And the exciting part is I've worked with a lot of you in the room. So it's great to be able to share time together, to really take a moment to focus on what are the things that are happening now. I'm going to preface a little bit about what we're going to talk about with a few thoughts. One is, as Neil presented, this is a time of change. For those of you who work with me, you know that I speak of the pandemic as the great opportunity. We've got to seize that opportunity. You hear this every day, but how do we make it functional? How do we make it happen? What role do we play? Because everything else in the world is going to change around us and we have to adapt to it. I think it was really interesting, Neil, that you talked about the diversity of the healthcare workforce, because we don't add new people. Did you notice that? It's very linear. We don't bring people into our profession. And what do we need to do about that? The other thing that I thought was very interesting that Neil shared, and is a very appropriate topic right now, is our whole look at DEI related to healthcare. Because do we match the demographics of the people we care for? And what is that going to look like in 10 years? Because we now have federal overlay that drives some of that. So again, our role in education is taking a really different turn, tremendously different turn. So as we talk about universities, as we talk about private colleges, as we talk about those entities responsible for bringing people into the pipeline, our role is changing dramatically. And how do we adapt to that? So let's take a minute to sort of begin to get some ideas and some opinions from our panel. Leading off of Neil, I'm going to play a little statistical question here. So in 2022, the first year healthcare employees, so they were hired, let's say at the beginning of 2022, and they left before the end of the calendar year, was 28.7%. Wow. Let's talk about that ROI for a minute. A lot of investment, and they're gone. Okay? We compare that to 2021 when the rate was 19.5%. So that's almost 10% more. So this is across all health careers. This isn't just nursing, because we know nursing has already changed dramatically, right? So if we narrow that, if we bring that into perspective from an education point of view, what is the role that education plays in reducing that impact for our employer partners? Because we partner with you, Novant, Cone, Atrium, private industry. Mr. Ward, you want to share your perspective on that?
Absolutely. So first thing, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I think this is a very important question to ask, because education is going to play a major role in helping improve a lot of these numbers. And there are numerous reasons why. The first reason being, when we think through training, upskilling, education, that's more important to the employee now than it's ever been. And that's just looking at statistics from the Great Resignation, as they called it, stemming from COVID. And a lot of that is because people want upward mobility. They want that work-life balance. They want to be able to advance in their career. And the way in doing so is continuing education, getting more degrees, getting certifications and things of that nature. And I also thought something interesting about the statistics, and when we think about healthcare employees, is more so than just the doctors and nurses. We have to think about who's working in the kitchen, who's cleaning up the rooms. When we think through who's shifting industries, I've seen retail, I've seen other industries that just weren't aligned to healthcare, and that's immediately who I thought of. So it will be important for us to create pathways for them to get into healthcare as well, because a lot of them are interested, they work around it every day, but they just don't know how to get into it. And a last thing, I seen a statistic, and I believe it was from the American Nurses Association, but 94% of them said that quality training and educational opportunities has a positive effect on their job satisfaction overall.
Great. Linda, any thoughts?
Just a few. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. One of the things I think about in being in health care education, specifically nursing education for many years, is that sometimes in going through an educational program, people have a concept, the students have a concept of what they feel like the career will be, and then when they get there, and I think about that first year, the word came to mind, drop out, but that's not probably the word we want to use. You know, the changer, the career changer, is that this isn't what I think I signed up for, it isn't what I thought it might be. So as much as we can immerse and expose our students to what the career really will be like, and I think sometimes we almost hesitate to do that because we don't want to send them running in the opposite direction, but yet what will it be like, and is that a good fit for me? We have to respond to trends as well. Some of the data that Neil shared, I think I took a picture of that screen, was the aging of the workforce in healthcare.
Let's call it maturing.
Maturing. It's about this hair turning gray, I know that, among other things. But, and that is magnified really with faculty. You see that so much more with faculty. So we have to, and we talk to our faculty a lot about this, we can't simply step into education and do it like it was done when we were in school. Students who graduate, I'm excited. I'm celebrating this spring and summer my 40th year as a nurse, and it's
I'm right there with you.
But that thing is totally different out there now than it was in 1983 when I was a new grad. I mean, some things remain the same, but it's just a different landscape now. So we have to, in education, we have to respond to trends in education, but then also, and education is a two-layered discipline. Not only do we know our health discipline, whether it's nursing or others, but then the discipline of education layered on top of that. So we have to stay current on trends in education. Who are our learners? How are they learning? They learn differently, process things differently than we did. My one-year-old grandbaby already knows how to swipe on the iPhone, and I'm not kidding. She's 14 months old and she can swipe and find the video. I'm like, wow. So anyway, the learning is different from cradle forward. You know, so we have to respond to trends. We have to be aware of what's happening in healthcare as well. What are our students going to be, facing when they get out there? We have to increase and grow our programs as needed. And you saw those enrollment trends. That's really been interesting phenomenon to watch as it responds to the economy. We have seen that over over the years that we see those statistics reflect each other. And so we have to grow our programs. Oh, well, that's easy for, I guess we have some upper administrators in the room, possibly. Grow your programs, increase your numbers. Okay, I was asked to do that this year for our program. It's easier said than done. Do I have the faculty? Do I have the space? Do I have the clinical space? Do I have the faculty? And then do I have the faculty to teach those courses? It's just a really pressing question. And I need, clinical faculty and classroom faculty. And as I mentioned before, that's a whole other discipline, not simply pulling someone from the bedside and, okay, now can you take my students and teach them. It's a process. Let's see, increasing funding is helpful on the education end, and that's easy for me to sit here and say to my upper administrators, yes, give us more money. So, getting in front of that looks at reallocation of funding models and lobbying, looking at what we ask our legislators to think about, consider, and having that forward-thinking mindset for what's healthcare going to look like, the next 10 years. I'll say this and then I'll pass this back to you, Warren. Having really dynamic feedback loops, I think, is important from practice to education. And we do a fairly good job, I think, of that locally. We partner with you all in the practice areas, the healthcare systems, but having really up-to-the-minute dynamic feedback loops where we can share what's happening. I didn't realize some of those until you had the statistic down here for this question, that was what we were looking at in first-year employees, that kind of turnover. And so those really dynamic feedback loops where you're letting us know what's happening out there and what you need from us, and then it's our job as educators to create and figure out how to respond to that in many ways. Having pathways to keep those folks in healthcare. How do I move from this job in housekeeping or as an LPN? How do I become an RN? How do I become a nurse practitioner? How do I become a PA? And so having those pathways that are doable. I like to tell my students in my RN to BSN program, this is a doable program. It works with you being a full-time nurse and works with your schedule, and we can make it doable and not just be sort of ivory tower and trying to accomplish things that may not be relevant or necessary at this point in 2023 and forward.
Right. Great, thank you both.
You're welcome.
So I think one of the things as educators and education does is to really be the between. So being the between means we have to figure out who our student population can be. Being the between is understanding what our employers need. So there's a lot of being in that funnel, if you will, for the things that we do. So Pam, talk to us a little bit about how we gauge what programs we think are going to be in high demand. How do we morph what we're teaching to meet the needs of our employers? What are we doing with that?
Thank you, Warren. Thank you, and I'm grateful to be here. Thank you very much. I think when we look and we want to gauge where the future is of healthcare is, we've got to look where we're at now. And as you saw the stats, I know probably every single one of you needs to hire somebody today. And there's things that we can do, obviously, for now, but I think the future, engaging the future, is the biggest decision maker in what direction we go. There's a lot of ways, from a university standpoint, we can do feasibility studies. We can look and we can do market surveys, and we can send them to all our practices and all of our hospital systems. You can and get that, but what I feel myself and is the best way for education, whether it's community college, whether it's four-year university, or even, a school more tailored toward directly to those skills, we got to know from you. Every university, every community college, we have what we call advisory boards. We have an opportunity for you as the employers to participate. We want your feedback. You've got to tell us what the trends are, or where you see your healthcare going, or where your needs are going to be, again, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. Plus, you also know who you've got, who is of the mature workforce, which I'm there as well. You know that they're going to be retiring. You know that that they are going to eventually go and enjoy their life somewhere else. But we don't know that. And from an education standpoint, we don't know that. We know we work with you guys. You tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly sometimes of things that we need to do or our students need to do. But as we gauge towards the future, we need it from you. It's got to come from you guys. be honest, share with us. If something in our program or any program's not working, you got to tell us, or is it obsolete? I have the opportunity to work with technical too, but as you know, technology changes pretty much every day. I go into my office and I've got a new program. I've got to learn how to open my Outlook. It's frustrating, but it is the trend. And the same thing in medical and in healthcare. It's got to be the exact same. It may not change quite as fast, but again, we need that from you. So when the universities and community colleges ask for your input, please give it, because you guys are the subject matter experts. We're here to help. We're here to help with that skills gap. But let us help you, but you got to let us know. And I do believe that that interaction with the universities, community colleges, where it's going to be the most impactful, and we will do what we can to make that happen for you as you move forward.
Great, thanks. So I think one of the things to look at from an educational standpoint of view is what are some of the barriers that we are now seeing. So before, people were taught that you go somewhere after high school. You know, you went to the university, you were encouraged to go to the university, you were encouraged to get some type of employability skills, whatever that looked like, or wherever you needed to go to get that. One of the things that's changed dramatically, and Linda, you touched on this just a little bit ago, there are no role models out there for high school students. So remember when you went home and you watched TV, now I'm really dating myself, with watch TV, there were 3 channel options. You had to move the antenna. But remember, those set the role models for, us. Is TikTok setting the role model for our high school students? Or Thread? Or Twitter? And how much healthcare is actually on those? Have you ever looked? You can get every fashion in the world, let me tell you that. Figure out how to do a lot of great moves. I probably need that. But when we are considering this population that we as post-secondary educators are pulling from, it's a challenge. When you work with first-generation students, and let's define that specifically. So first-gen students are people who are in a family unit, however we define family unit today, where within that family unit, no one has been to post-secondary education. Okay, so let's put the great opportunity on top of that. Do you know what learning looked like? Where are my Winston-Salem Forsyth County School Group? Praise to you all, God bless you. Because that was a year from hell. People know how to solve them, so we get it. But here's the thing. So as those students matriculate into post-secondary, what are we working on? How do you communicate? How do you write? How do you make eye contact? Because this is the way we, right? How do you find words that equal the emoji? That's my favorite. So the challenges are becoming huge. And I think, Pam, as you alluded to, our partnership is paramount now, more than it ever had to be. 15 years ago, I would teach all day long because people were going to come take a seat. I didn't care where they went to work. I care. We have to care.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So Linda, talk to us a little bit more about partnerships, and particularly maybe if you can give an example of a partnership where we really need to expand and grow. Let me grab a mic. Sorry.
I'll talk about my favorite one. And if I've had conversations with, if any of you in the past, you've heard me on my soapbox about this one. I love this partnership, and it's, I'd love to see it revived. And so, as I mentioned before, we struggle in nursing education and in other, I'm sure in other discipline educations in health, specific to healthcare, with having enough faculty and needing more clinical faculty, needing more lab faculty, that sort of thing. And so a model that was arrived upon, and I'll be real I'll be real specific if that's okay. In the early 2000s, I want to say it was created in around 2003, did a research study, not myself, but I came in after the model had been created, with 2 healthcare systems in the same county, Novant and Wake Forest Baptist, at the table together with 2 education partners in Forsyth County, Forsyth Tech and Winston-Salem State University. And so the 4 and AHEC as our other partner as well. And so now the 5 of us came to the table, and again, I don't want to take credit for that. I have some awesome colleagues who created this model. And the model was that where we had needs for clinical faculty, the healthcare system was able to provide and release their staff nurses from a shift or 2 per week to teach during those shifts. So sometimes where people don't want to give that extra time to a second job, although most nurses I've ever known had second jobs, their time teaching with the university or the community college was part of their 40-hour work week. So it was paid at that same rate, because now this is an experienced nurse who's making a pretty good salary, and honestly the salary as a faculty member, as a part-time clinical instructor, couldn't always compare with that. And so it was paid at their regular salary. It was part of their 40-hour work week, so they continued to accumulate their PTO, sick time, those kind of benefits, while they were stepping over here teaching our students for 1 or 2 of their shifts per week. And so the 2 pieces that the partnership did was, so candidates that would make really good clinical instructors, maybe had been preceptors, that sort of thing, their names were put forward. They were interested in dipping their toe in the water to see what that would be like to be a clinical instructor. And partnering with AHEC, we provided a course in just a brief, quick course in teaching and learning adult students, those kind of principles, what it would be like to be, how it's different than being a preceptor, how it's different than being a staff nurse. And then so we had a whole pool of these clinical instructors. The other piece of the partnership that was critical too was the nurse manager being able to release that nurse from, consistently for this time schedule on Tuesdays to work with the university or the community college. So that model partnership was just beautiful. It helped us out in such a tremendous way in staffing, and then the win-win is that students loved it because they had a nurse who was a real nurse. They had an instructor who was a real nurse at the bedside, boots on the ground kind of nurse who actually worked on this unit, so they thought that was really awesome. It helped us out to be able to have enough clinical groups, and we could actually increase our enrollment because we had enough instructors to staff that. And then how does it help the health system? We have, as I said, could increase our enrollment. We could therefore graduate more students and feed back into their systems. They had a great experience at that healthcare system, and so they wanted to come back there and work when they graduated. So a really great model. We've had some discussions recently and some a different approach to it with a statewide grant that may possibly sort of revitalize that. So I just really love that partnership, but it took some creativity, and it took people working together at the table that didn't always sit at the table to create a design and a model together. And so I just really love that one.
Yeah, that was very good. And there had been other partnerships that had looked differently, and even in the early 1900s. That is so not true. I am mature, but not that mature. In the early 1990s, digits matter. So where hospitals were subsidizing some of the faculty for education. And I will tell you very specifically that even in my role, so to give you some number examples, because we tend to like numbers. So this summer I have 334 students. I'm down to 2 full-time faculty. This is why I'm dressed in my business casual, because I will be doing clinical this afternoon. When you don't have the faculty, and most of you know I'm apolitical, but I say what I mean and mean what I say. And we don't talk to the legislators about paying for faculty.
Mhm.
And you come to me and say, I need 20 CNAs. And I would like to be able to say, that'll happen tomorrow, but we're gonna have to wait till the next term when I have enough faculty to teach them. We all have work agendas, we all have personal agendas, we have family agendas. At some point on your agenda, you have to be vocal. You have to say, you know, we can talk this to death, but if we don't act today, it will pass us by. So when we start teaching our students how to use AI, and yes, we've had to do that, and we try to tell our students that from an AI perspective, just ask ChatGPT how to take care of that patient. Happening. Happening. Please give my patient 50 milligrams of dopamine over 3 hours. I speak it into the world, and my machines do it. How do I know they're accurate? How do I know the machine was loaded with dopamine? So now we're having to work with students who don't get to learn because we tell them to use Siri, Alexa. That's healthcare? Let's think. Let's think. The other partnership that I think would be incredibly exciting. So I talked about first-gen students. I talked about what our students are bringing now as their hurdles. When I'm working with single mothers going into health sciences, any idea what their first hurdle is and why they don't do it?
Childcare.
Thank you. How many hospitals have childcare? Mm-hmm. Oh, I know. Wow. Is there an opportunity to have some cooperative there? Transportation is the second. Public transportation in the triad is abysmal. If any of you are on the board of transportation, I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend you, but you're really bad. When we talk about where our students live and get them to school or get them to work, can you get a bus? No. So looking at that, Dr. Summers, and I know we're running a little long. Good conversation though. Not because I'm in charge, but good conversation. You can tell I love to lecture, right? So, Dr. Summers, talk to us a little bit about how we support that whole health, work, education balance for our students, because that's going to matter when they get employed.
Yeah, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here. You might be wondering, what is the president of Salem Academy and College doing here? Aren't they a liberal arts women's college in Winston-Salem? Yes, we are. But 4 years ago, we made the decision to pivot our entire academic and co-curricular experience to focus on building the next generation of women leaders in health. And so the healthcare ecosystem that you're talking about and the workforce demands that you need, we've talked a lot about clinical today. What Salem College is focused on is all of those other aspects of healthcare. I'm a health administration professor by training. We are focused on building that next generation of students who will be prepared to work in the ambulatory care centers, to be managers, to staff those places, to be prepared. And as Warren was talking about a little bit earlier, because we are a liberal arts grounded institution, we are focused on preparing our students with the leadership skills and the health-related knowledge and competencies that they need to be successful in these environments. And so we are focused on resiliency. We are focused on conflict resolution and negotiation. That is becoming part of our core curriculum for every student. These are the things that we believe the next generation of healthcare workers and leaders have to have. They have to understand how this really complex, and if I may say sometimes screwed up, system that we all work in, how it works and what they can do to contribute to being the problem solvers. And so as we're thinking about how do we stem the tide of, from the very first question, students who come in and only spend a year in a health-related field, we have to not only give them those experiences while they're learning with us, but give them the skills, the confidence, the ability to pick themselves back up. And they need to learn that while they're with us in a safe environment where they can try things and fail, where they can experience the conflicts and the challenges that inevitably happen in our organizations because we're short-staffed and we're overworked and we have all these challenges. And so part of the unique approach that I think Salem is now taking is really trying to tackle head-on through our curriculum and the internships and the co-curricular experiences that we give to our students to have them come out equipped and ready to face those challenges head on. Some of them will go into clinical professions, and we are working on building pipelines and partnerships to get them into those fields. But as you all know, there's so much other work involved in healthcare now and providing care to our communities. That's why we added majors in things like health advocacy, health communication, health administration, public health, because we believe there's just as much need in those areas as there is for clinical professionals, and certainly we will have those too. And I just lastly want to mention, I can't emphasize enough how important, and one of our key pillars in this work that we are doing is teaching and promoting cultural competence to enhance diversity, equity, inclusion in our organizations. Salem College, you might not believe it, is 45% BIPOC women. 55% are Pell eligible. These are students who are looking for social mobility or looking for a career in health to change their lives and to change the fate of their families. And they choose Salem because we are small like Guilford and others and can provide them with support. But part of what we are also promising them is that you will have a set of skills that other health professionals, other students in med school, other opportunities that you may have to enter the health field that they won't have by attending other institutions. And we hope that that's true. We are very early on in that experiment. And I just want to also echo what you said. We need to know what needs to be in our curriculum. We need to know your early careerists that you have in your organizations, what skills do they not have? What things are they struggling with? Because we can put that into our classrooms and our learning experiences and prepare better, stronger, early career students who hopefully will become the leaders of your organization in future generations to come. It's a very long pipeline we need to build. We just did a partnership with North Forsyth High School in the Winston-Salem, Forsyth County schools to enhance opportunities for women and girls in STEM. Because we need to start giving them the confidence and the ability to see that they can have a future, a long-term career in the sciences and in health-related fields. And so it's the full pipeline that we are committed to building. I think you've heard today we're all committed to building that. And so it's just a really exciting time. But so much of this is about equipping our students with more than just the technical skills. And giving them really solid foundation, because the healthcare environment that we all are in today will not be the same. ChatGTP is just the beginning, but if we equip them well with the ability to deal with change, with the ability to anticipate and identify trends, we will have served them well, whatever the next thing is that none of us can predict, and hopefully we're not around to have to deal with it. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. So a couple of things that I think is very important to what a lot of people have said, but I do want to echo again. So when we are serving as educators, our dependency upon you is tremendous. Some of you as employers, I'm going to pick on the blunt. Some of you as employers, because they're up front, have taken a movement for recruiting, for embedding recruiters or tying recruiters to schools, post-secondary educators. And there's a level of that that's very strong. But there is a level, here's your challenge, there's a level that we need to see you. When we see you on campus, you're making a difference. Remember I said there are no role models. There aren't. They get to see me. People always ask why did I go into nursing? And the reason is because when I go to nursing conventions, my bathroom's always open because 72% of the people are women. Right. So this is why I chose that. I'm very mercenary in what decisions I make. But the reality is we need that diversity. We need to be seeing you as employers. We need to see your excitement in our education. I want to pause so we see if there are any questions out there. I'm sure there are. Don't be shy. I won't throw the mic at you. Mr. Copeland.
I didn't so much a question, but I'm glad to have full guy. I just want to thank all the panelists for your insights about where we're headed, because it sounds like, for all the, I don't know, negative news, but all the challenges we face, it's very impressive to hear where you are each positioning yourself in future. But I want to talk to a colleague from Salem College, because we've heard a lot of statistics. You've actually got some good statistics, so will you share those with us? It was a slow pitch.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a college president. I never miss an opportunity to plug my institution. So since my arrival, this is my third year at Salem, and so when I arrived, I was a health sciences dean prior to coming to Salem, and when I arrived, we really moved aggressively to make our mark and tell our story about how we are still very much a liberal arts college, but a very different one with a very specific focus. And we tell students we are here to make the world a better, healthier, more equitable place. And over the last 2 years, since I've arrived, we have 2 years consecutively in a row doubled the size of our incoming class. 75% of our students coming to Salem are studying in STEM and health-related fields. The diverse female workforce that you are looking for 5-6 years down the road, it's at Salem College, and they are really excited about being those change makers and change agents. And so it is, while we are seeing community college enrollments and other enrollments decline, I think one of the things that we are really seeing is that students are hungry. This generation of students, they want to make the world better. They want to make their communities healthier. We just have to find a way to make it easier, to provide access to those opportunities and those experiences. 53% of those students who are coming to Salem College in the fall are first gen. They don't have those role models. Right. Half of them come to Salem and say, I'm going to be a doctor. And I go, oh, I know you want to be a doctor, but let's also talk about all the other ways that you can make an impact in healthcare. Some of you will go to medical school. We also have a tremendous who are interested in nursing and other things. And so I think also one of the things that employers and the health systems can help us do is come to our campuses and help expand the understanding and the vision of what it means to be in this healthcare ecosystem. It is so much bigger than your average 18-year-old graduating from high school can even fathom. They're not thinking about working in quality or patient experience or analytics. They're not thinking about that. And one of the things I think we can do is be that place where you can showcase the incredible work that you're doing and get students excited about that. So we're very pleased to be an institution on the rise. We're seeing a great response across their community, and we're going to need help supporting and creating opportunities for all of these new students that are coming to Salem. So thank you for teeing me up, and if you'd like to know more, I'm happy to talk on the break.
So I do want to share a couple of thoughts. If you've never, don't use Google. I bet I say that 1,000 times in class. Do not use Google to answer this question. Sometimes get out a piece of paper and list all the post-secondary community colleges, universities, and private colleges that exist and Forsyth and Guilford County. There is no other part of the state that is as rich in post-secondary education than where we live. We're no more than 40 minutes from each other. When you have that kind of concentration, the change agents that we can be are amazing. But we're only as good of a change agent as the data that we receive from you and Neil. So just think about that. Reach out, talk. We live in silos still. We gotta communicate. And when you have a chance to be part of an alliance or a group that brings that to the table, take advantage of it. Even if you take home one nugget, it's worth it. It's worth it. Any other questions before we wrap up for the break? All right. Thank you all so much. Pleasure to work with you.
Thank you, Warren, for moderating that session. That was awesome. And thank you, panelists. So we are at our break. Want to encourage you all to get more refreshments, more breakfast. There are bathrooms here on the first floor, the second door to your right when you come out of the building, and also on the second floor. We will commence our second speaker at 10:30, which is Gen Z Attracting, Working, and Retaining with Dr. Amanda Zoswell Huff. So we'll see you all in 10 minutes.
Yeah, for your daughter. Yeah.